Hello and welcome back to Gem Pursuit. It's Matthew here, and I have to say I am absolutely delighted to be back with my trustiest of trusty co-hosts, Alyce Catcher. Alyce, good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
Listen, for me anyway, I'm super excited anytime we have to launch an episode, never mind a whole new series, which is what we're doing today. Alyce, give us a little short insight into what our new series is going to be about.
Well, for me, when it comes to jewellery, jewellery for me isn't just like a time that I do for work. It is something that I live and breathe. And so when I'm away on holiday or if I'm in a new city on a city break, I'll always go straight to the art galleries to see basically old jewellery and paintings. And so we thought that this season we would bring to you a bit of that particular essence from all of the cities around Europe.
This really is fresh ground that we're breaking here. It's like the intersection of where jewellery meets art. And actually, the more we looked into this, like it was so interlinked, and that is why I'm super excited. Although I have to say I'm not an art historian, I'm working on it. But it's super excited to get started into this new series with Gem Pursuit. Alyce, let's get started. What we're going to do here is we're going to look at different very historical paintings, some which people, I think, if you're watching, you're going to guess perhaps which ones we're going to start off with. I mean, the one we're going to talk about today, it's really in the name. But there's also some slightly more obscure ones that are definitely worth looking at. But today, Alyce, it's in the title. What one are we going to look at?
We're looking at the Mona Lisa of the North. This is known as Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring. Basically, outside of Mona Lisa, she is probably one of the most important pieces of historic art in the world. And of course, we thought it was absolutely paramount that she be the opening of this particular season, due to the fact that the pearl itself in it is what draws your eye straight away.
Just to give a very quick insight to what you see in this painting, when I looked at it anyway, obviously I've seen it before, but the first time studying for this, it's a girl, obviously, with the pearl earring, but for me, it was the contrast of the lighting and the way she's looking at you, which is why I think what you said, the Mona Lisa of the North, she really does interact with you the way the Mona Lisa does. But it's set against a dark background. She's super bright, luminous, if I could say that. But that's my word of the day. But she's super bright, luminous, and it contrasts really much against the dark backdrop. I think her, if you wanted to call it a headpiece, is very unusual looking. It's not what I thought would have been in a Dutch painting from the late 1600s or 17th century. It stands out with the colour, and then obviously, as you mentioned, the pearl that is in her earring, where the title comes from.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at this particular painting, it's important to kind of understand what was happening in this particular painting. So if you want to see, number one, if you want to see this painting, it's in Morris House in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And it is what draws the crowds there. It is, it's the it girl piece of the whole museum collection. And, as Matthew said, if you think that you haven't seen this particular picture, it's likely you have seen it in pop culture somewhere. There's movies that have been made about it. There has been novels that have been written about it. But the truth of the matter is, when we look at this particular painting from 1665, is that we don't know a lot about it. We don't know a lot about Vermeer, who was the actual artist who created this particular painting. We have no idea who the person in the actual painting is, because this particular painting is what is known as a Trony painting. And that was an idealized character from the period. And this gives us more insight into actually what it was like for the Dutch at this particular time, because it's highlighting characteristics of what they aspired to be. So it's not so much a painting really of someone, it's a painting of a dream. It's what we would look at today when we look in the pages of Vogue. We open up Vogue and we're like, wow, I'd really love to have my hair like that, or I'd love to own that bag, or I'd love to, you know, have that
piece of jewelry
ensemble that she's wearing. And that's what this is, but this is created in 1665. So it is like, look at this girl, you want to be her. She's got this turban on, which has the most brilliant blue. Okay, this particular blue actually would have been created from lapis lazuli, which in the 17th century would have been more expensive than gold. And a lot of it would have had to have been used to create the blue in this turban. So it automatically has this sense of extreme luxury, just looking at the painting. Also, as Matthew said, the actual headdress that she's wearing cannot be linked to any civilization at this particular time. So it automatically gives us this exotic feeling. She's a well-traveled woman, which at the time would have been very expensive to do. She's also got beautiful porcelain glass skin. And then, of course, the most amazing part of this particular painting is 2 strokes of white paint that actually create the illusion of the pearl. And that is what makes it so amazing, is all of these elements together paint us not just a picture of this beautiful woman, beautiful dark background, amazing costume, amazing use of light, but it also paints us a picture of what people in the Netherlands and in wider Europe were aspiring to be.
It's such a, I think the word you used there, which I had never heard before until looking into this painting in depth, was Trony, which, and as you said, it's a dream. This is not a real person necessarily. It's a imaginary character. And the Dutch used to love doing that in the context of that time. Like they ruled the waves, right? The Dutch ruled the wave. They just got independence from Spain, which also, I mean, my historical knowledge, I thought I had a half decent one. I didn't realize Spain went up that far, but they did. But the Spanish had just left. They had this total independence, and it was a merchant class. And I think for me, that's kind of what this girl represents, this merchant class. The pearl is then important because it was a symbol of their wealth. They had the Dutch East India Company. You know, Delft, the town that they were in, was a hub for this. And because not just, you know, it wasn't just the Spanish who had left. I think they weren't, don't quote me on this, although it's going on the record. They weren't terribly religious, right? So there also wasn't huge power with the church. So the painting's also like a little bit suggestive. Like it's...
Yeah, I mean...
The video that just turned on before we came on air of someone describing it, like her lips are just slightly open. She's turning... I've seen this myself a few times just as she's about to leave. And like it's...
Okay. But no, absolutely. But, you know, the Dutch were, as you said, at this particular time, they're finding they've found their feet. We're in the Dutch Golden Age, and the Dutch Golden Age would have happened in around the 1640s. So wealth is abundant. still religious, and especially if you think about religion today and how secular a lot of our communities have become.
Sorry, you're right, but proportionally
But
to
exactly,
yeah.
but in regards to Spain at the time, it would have been considered a lot more secular than Spain, a bit more conservative when it comes to religion. But this was like the birth of basically your a middle class of some kind. And it also would have been the birth of the retail jeweler. So when we look at today, the way that we have, jewelry shops available for people to go and view made items, this would not have been the case up until about this time. Before that, it would have been going straight to the craftsman. So you would have gone there and you would have had something made specifically, and most of the time that would have only have been available to the aristocratic elite. So because of this, middle class starting to break ground, we finally see kind of this opening of the retail jeweler, where jewelry was starting to be used by that merchant class.
I think what you said there really sums it up in a way. But prior to that, it was really aristocracy, monarchs, the very, very top end of society had pearls. But as the Netherlands and Delft and these places developed the merchant class, pearls start to become more widely available, even though they were extremely rare. Like pearls at this time, there was no cultured pearl. They were natural pearls from the Persian Gulf, possibly from the Americas, possibly from India, but they were extremely, extremely rare. And wearing a pearl it symbolized a lot. Is it a real pearl, Alyce?
Well, like we was explaining in the first part of this podcast, this is a Trony painting, so it is a dream, and this would be like having one of the largest diamonds in the world that would be available today in a magazine. Obviously, we have travel and things like that, so that's more available to us to be able to do that and put that into a photograph. But in this particular period, no. And just to give a little bit of background about Vermeer, he married a Catholic woman when he was Protestant so that he could get some money, because she was the one who had a bit of money, but she didn't have a lot of money.
But that was scandalous at the time.
Yes. But he converted to Catholicism to marry her. Then they lived with her mother because they didn't have the money to live by themselves. And they had 14 children. So he was under a lot of pressure in terms of finances because of everything that was going on there. So it is highly, highly unlikely that we're looking at a real pearl, because a pearl of this size, when we look at the scale of the pearl to the head of the beautiful model, is extremely large. Now we can only see the light reflecting off of it, so we can only see size. We can't really see there's no details of whether or not it's perfectly round, or that it's not pitted, or that it's not have surface problems on the actual pearl, which is all about how much it is determined by its quality. So even with just its sheer size from this particular period, we're looking at, a value of around 20 to 50 million in today's actual money value. Which a man with 14 children at this particular time period, with getting married so that he can have a bit of money, highly unlikely
Yeah.
that he would have had that in his grasp.
And even as you were mentioned there, Alyce, I think it's also important to remember that, they were valued. Like, it wasn't like they were
They're
cheaper
still,
back then.
yeah, they're still valuable today. It would be worth that now.
Yes. So anyway, I guess in a way, from the artistic perspective, it mightn't really matter in a sense whether it was real or not. And but from a jewellery perspective, unlikely based on the value. I mean, and in context, like, pearls have always been super valuable. In 1916, you get the cultured pearl, which, floods the market with cultured, really beautiful looking pearls. But today, natural pearls like this one, if it was real, are still absolutely massively valuable. You need certificates with it. They're hard to discern whether they're natural or not. I know but as an example, like, I bought a few natural pearls in the Las Vegas Antique Show in the summer, and I brought them to one person, and like that. That's a click. Like that.
That's a click.
That's a click. No, but like that, they absolutely jumped at them. Big natural pearls. So, yeah, going back 300 odd years, 300 and something years, it's still true. It's still a symbol, as you said, of wealth, of status. It might matter what it was, but I actually love how he's painted the pearls. You said, I think it's just 2 strokes. It's like,
it's literally, he's known as the master of light. But if we look at it in context in terms of, what's going on in this particular period. So we're 1665 when the painting's actually finished. We know that Vermeer was an absolute perfectionist. There's only 36 paintings that we know of.
So you had to have so many children to perfect it, was it? Or
I don't know. But he also only lived a very short life.
Surprised.
He died in his late 40s and left his wife with a lot of debt. So, and 14 children. Lovely man. But he
must have been
this particular time period is also important in looking at this particular piece in context of jewellery. So we've moved out of the Renaissance period once we hit this kind of golden age. And we move into a jewellery period, which is kind of known as the Baroque period. Now, the Baroque period is very grand, and the main source of jewellery for that particular time, which is considered most prized, well above diamonds, is pearls. And mostly, any time that we look at jewellery from any time period, the reason why it's so prized is usually because it is in short supply. It's hard to get. And once you do have it, it's hard to keep. So when we look at the pearl, it couldn't have been anything else in 1665. It wouldn't have looked right if it was a diamond. It wouldn't have been right even if it was a girandole earring, which was very, very popular at this period as well, which is like a pendant earring that has kind of 3 drops on it. That would have also not looked right in this painting. It's all about proportions. It's all about light, exotic beauty, and wealth. And the painting says it all with one slight glance over the shoulder.
He was the expert in pearls. Like 18 of his 36 works depict pearls. And as you said, one quick look, and I think it does what a great painting should do. It just leaves you thinking about it. But I mean, the legacy of and the meaning of this pearl, I mean, so historically, Vermeer wasn't actually like a super well-known, desirable painter up until, well, I was going to say relatively recently, but like the 1890s, right, or late 1800s. He kind of disappeared for 200 or an odd years, and
Disappeared. Poof.
yeah, I mean, he came back. You know, it was great painting, and I guess legacy with paintings. That's one of the things that they do. That's why they can last forever, right? But 200 and odd years, and then he started to become popular again, and people realized, as you mentioned at the start, at least, that not a lot was really known about him. But one of the things that one of the very interesting parts about this is that this painting was rediscovered in an auction in the Netherlands, and it was just when he was starting to become popular in the 19th century, and it was bought for 2 guilders 30 cent, which I think judging by the purchasing power index website that we look at, I think it was like €24 in today's money, right? So the €24 in today's money, it was purchased, wasn't identified. It was dirty. It was, like a painting that was stored at the back of a wardrobe or something for a long time. But it was purchased by, and I have this guy's name wrote down because it's quite a mouthful, Arnoldus Andreas Destum. And
Good find, Andreas.
one of the finest, I would say. He cleaned it up. He got it authenticated. It was a Vermeer, and a bit different to his other paintings. But I mean, I'm just identifying with the thought of someone searching for these rare paintings, and the rush he must have got when he got that authenticated as a Vermeer must be really something.
I think that would have really given Vermeer a kick, because his background was his parents were traders, and in particular his dad was an art dealer. So I think it would have given him a real kick that, his painting was kind of lost and then was discovered at that kind of price, because it would have, when you work in the jewellery industry, or you work in the art industry, very similar, arts detectives, all that kind of.
It's the hunt, isn't it?
It is the hunt. And so I'm sure that he would have got a real kick out of knowing that that's how he was rediscovered. But in terms of legacy, the way that I look at this painting and Vermeer in particular is, although he's he's known as the Master of Light or the Sphinx of Delft, because of the mystery surrounding him. I actually, from a jewellery perspective, I look at his works as the work of pearls, and actually being able to capture them in painting. I mean, when you look at a pearl in real life, it's almost like looking at the moon. And I've never seen someone who's actually been able to capture the moon in a photograph or in a painting where it actually looks exactly like what my eye sees when I look at the moon.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like when we're doing the photos for the website, right?
Yes.
It's not, we take photos and they actually look like too good or too bad, and we actually have to Photoshop them to make them look like the ring actually looks like. And he captures what the pearl actually would look like.
Yeah, it's just, it's astounding to me the way that he is able to capture what is known on a pearl as the Orient, which is this, it's almost like
Oil kind of on water.
Similar. It's like silk. When silk moves in a certain way, it's like satin when light hits it in a certain way. And that's what makes him really interesting to me. That's why I want to see his artworks, because to me, I love jewelry. a lot of the time when I look at paintings, it's not captured exactly the way that I've seen it in person. But with Vermeer, I can see the actual essence of the jewel in his painting. And that is what makes it so incredible to me as a gemologist, being able to see actually you've been able to capture what a pearl actually looks like if it was really there sitting on her ear with the light hitting it that way.
And he actually does it better than a modern camera would, funny enough, which is quite incredible. So, I mean, and as you said, the legacy and the influence on jewellery in later art, like this had a huge impact on jewellery and art as well. And it kind of also moved jewellery in a way from like ornamental to like symbolic. Like the earring is symbolic because it's not, as you said, it might not be real, right? But it is what the important thing is what it symbolized. You know, the Dutch ruling the waves, the exotic culture, as you mentioned. Well, it's not exotic if you live in it, I suppose, but it does all that, and yet at the same time, it's so simple. Like it's a portrait of an imaginary woman.
It's also
supposedly.
It's also at that particular time, it would have been like a billboard. So it would have been like, you know, oh, I like that blue turban. I like that headpiece. I like that earring. I want that earring. I'm going to work very hard to get that earring. And we do that today. We see things today that other people are wearing. The majority of the time when I'm when I'm working in the shop or when I'm working with jewelry and I'm speaking with collectors of jewelry, they will come to me and they will say, I saw someone wearing this. I saw this somewhere.
It's normally you.
It's not. I've seen something styled this way. And that's what the legacy of paintings that have jewelry in it also leave behind. They leave us wanting. Making us want and desire more for ourselves in terms of adornment. And even to this very day, pearl earrings that have this same kind of composition are still sought after. Women still want something quite simple, but show off the gemstone. Now, we could switch out this gemstone for a number of other gemstones depending, but the actual design itself, even though this is 17th century jewel, is still super modern. I remember thinking when I first saw it as a young girl, I actually thought that it was a child in the painting because of her skin. I thought that she was
Well, he has 11 or 14 children, so it could be.
I know, but like now when I look at it now, I don't think that. But as a child, I thought she was a child. And I also thought that she was from India because of the way she was dressed. And then I thought that it was something that was created quite modern. Obviously, I was a very young girl, but it was like something that I had seen in my mum's magazines. It looked actually a lot more modern than the other pieces that I had seen that were close to Renaissance period pieces. If you brought that out today, very same design, you would not think that it was something that was from the 17th century.
You would see that if she walked down the road today, you would be like, oh, she looks really cool. Kind of bit, a
little bit out there.
A little bit out there, but really cool. And I guess, in line with the theme of tronies, it's depicted to be idealized, exotic. The earring itself represents an idealized version of pearl jewelry. It's enormous. It looks great. It's really more of an exotic fantasy than a reality. And that's all for this episode of Gem Pursuit, the very first in our brand new series, Jewellery in Paintings. I think what better jewel to begin with than one of the most famous paintings in the world for centuries. And if you want to know more, we have dedicated a full episode to them way back in our first ever gemstone series. That's pearls, and that's well worth a listen to as well. I think I'd like to just say, Alyce, thank you very much for joining us this morning and giving us an insight into especially your first memory of this particular painting and to your immense knowledge of pearls in the world of gemology. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Ross Hannon of Tape Deck, with project management and research by Veronique Gauguin and Fenia Segudi, and the videographer is Colin Weldon. For myself, Matthew Weldon, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Gem Pursuit.